previous segments, we discussed three main methods by which Homo sapiens might upgrade itself into some other kind of being: biological engineering, cyber engineering, and the engineering of non-organic life. Presently, only a tiny fraction of the potential of these methods has actually been realized. Yet already today, in 2013, we are in the middle of an immense social, political, and ethical revolution. More and more spheres of activity are being shaken out of their complacent ways. Lawyers and judges need to rethink issues of privacy and identity. Governments need to rethink matters of healthcare and equality. Sports associations and educational institutions need to redefine what fair play means and what achievement means. And pension funds and labor organizations need to readjust to a world in which 60 might well be the new 30. They must all deal with the ethical and social problems which are raised by bioengineering, by cyborgs, and by inorganic life. Take the issue of privacy, for example. Mapping the first human genome took 15 years and $3 billion. Today, you can map your DNA within a few days at the cost of a few $100. There are many companies on the internet that offer this service. This opens the way, the easy mapping of DNA, it opens the way to a revolution in medical care. It opens the way to personalized medicine that matches treatment to your own DNA. With this prints of your DNA, the family doctor can tell you with greater certainty than ever before that you yourself face high risk of liver cancer, whereas giving your DNA, you don't need to worry much about heart attacks because you're very unlikely to have a heart attack. The family doctor could also determine, based on your DNA, that a very popular medication that helps 92% of the population is useless for you, and that instead you should take another pill which is dangerous to most people, but for you it is just perfect. However, this easy ability to map your DNA may open the way to other things as well. For example, would insurance companies be entitled to ask to see your DNA scan and to raise premiums if they discover that you have a genetic tendency to reckless behavior? So they say, okay, you have this gene, you pay double. Or for example, when you apply for a job, could your future boss ask that instead of faxing him your CV, I don't want your CV, fax me your DNA. That's much better. I want to see your DNA, not your CV. Would the employer be entitled to ask for such a thing? And would the employer be entitled to favor somebody else, to give the job to somebody else because he likes her DNA more than he likes your DNA, because you have some suspicious gene which is often connected with all kinds of problematic behavior, so he prefers her? Would you be able in such a case to sue for genetic discrimination? Or would this be acceptable? Why not? If we have DNA, why not use it? Such dilemmas are dwarfed by the ethical, the social, and the political implications of the Gilgamesh project, the project to give humans eternal life, and by the potential new abilities to create superhumans. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, government medical programs throughout the world, national health insurance programs, and national constitutions worldwide recognize that a humane society, a good society, ought to give all its members fair medical treatment and to keep all members of society, as far as possible, in relatively good health. That was all very good and well, as long as medicine was chiefly concerned with preventing illness and with healing the sick. What would happen once medicines becomes more and more preoccupied with enhancing human abilities, giving humans new abilities instead of just healing sicknesses and illnesses? Would all humans be entitled to such enhanced abilities? Or would there be a new superhuman elite that only they have these wonderful new abilities? Our modern world today prides itself on recognizing for the first time in history the basic equality of all humans. But we might be poised to create the most unequal society that ever existed on earth. Throughout history, the upper classes always claimed that they are smarter, they are stronger, they are better than the underclass. But they were usually just deluding themselves. In the Middle Ages, the kings thought they were very superior to the peasants. But a baby born to a poor peasant family was likely to be as intelligent as the crown prince, as the son of the king. However, today, with the help of new medical and scientific capabilities, the pretensions of the upper classes might become an objective reality. They might really be smarter and stronger and better than the underclasses and everybody else. And we need to realize that this is not science fiction. This is science. Most science fiction plots describe a world in which sapiens, identical to you and me, enjoy superior technology, such as spaceships that travel in the speed of light and laser guns. And the ethical and political dilemmas which are central to these science fiction movies and books, they are concerned with people like you and me. They are taken from our world and merely recreate our social tensions and our emotional dilemmas against a futuristic backdrop. But the real potential of future technology is to change not the spaceships, but Homo sapiens itself, including our emotions and thoughts and desires. Science fiction rarely describes such a future because an accurate description is by definition incomprehensible to people today. Producing a film about the life of some super cyborgs in the future is like producing Hamlet to an audience of Neanderthals. They won't be able to understand what's happening. And similarly, we can't understand a real story about the future. And what should be emphasized is that the future masters of the world, if all these predictions come true, will probably be much more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals. Whereas we and the Neanderthals are at least human and organic, these future beings are going to be godlike and probably inorganic, at least in parts of their bodies. This is why more and more scholars say that what really awaits us in the future is the singularity. Now, what is the singularity? The singularity is a point in which our world of meaning collapses completely. A point when everything we know about ourselves and about the world all our hopes and fears and so forth, our very identity, they will all become irrelevant. We cannot imagine this point or anything happening after this point. It is singular. It is not comparable to anything else within our field of experience. The term itself, singularity, is taken from physics. Physicists define the Big Bang as a singularity. The Big Bang was a point when all known natural laws, including space and time, did not exist and did not function in any way that we can understand using our current models and knowledge. Hence, anything that happened before the Big Bang is also meaningless to us. The very notion of time had no meaning during the Big Bang, so it is meaningless to speak about things happening before the Big Bang because there is no time. So this is a point of singularity in the past, the Big Bang. We might fast be approaching another future point of singularity in which our known world of meaning will simply collapse. Everything happening beyond that point is incomprehensible to us, and it's useless to try and imagine it or talk about it. Unless some nuclear or ecological catastrophe intervenes, the pace of technological development is so rapid that we will soon come to the point when Homo sapiens is replaced by completely different beings who possess not only different physiques, but also different cognitive and emotional abilities and experiences. This is something that most people, most sapiens, find extremely troublesome, extremely disconcerting. We like to believe that in the future, people like us will travel from planet to planet in fast spaceships. We don't like to contemplate the possibility that in the future, beings with emotions and identities like ours will no longer exist, and our place in the universe will be taken by alien life forms whose abilities dwarf our abilities. Alien life forms, our descendants, who would look on us in the same way that we look at Neanderthals. Now, it should be emphasized that all this is, of course, just speculation. Nobody really knows what will happen in the future. It would be surprising if all the forecasts given today, and if all the forecasts that I mentioned in the last few minutes would be realized in full. History teaches us again and again that what seems to be inevitable and just around the corner may never materialize due to all kinds of unforeseen barriers. And that, in contrast, other scenarios which nobody foresaw, they will actually happen. For example, when the nuclear age began in the 1940s with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and later on, when the space age began, when the Soviets launched Sputnik to space, and the Americans landed a man on the moon, then everybody began fantasizing and forecasting that in the year 2000, people will live in colonies on Mars and on the moon and on Pluto, and all kinds of fantasies and forecasts about the nuclear world of the year 2000. Very few of all these forecasts actually happened. We don't live today in colonies on Mars fueled by nuclear energy. In contrast, nobody in the time of Hiroshima and Sputnik managed to forecast the internet, which in many respects is much more amazing than living on Mars in some nuclear colony. So you should take most of what I said in this lesson not as reliable forecasts for the future, but more as a stimulant for your imagination. What we should take very seriously is not the exact forecasts, but the basic idea that the next stage of history will include not only technological and organizational transformation, but also fundamental revolutions in human consciousness and human identity. And these could be revolutions so fundamental that they will call into question the very term human. Whatever happens after the revolution, it won't be human anymore. Now, how long do we have until this happens, until the singularity? Nobody really knows, of course. Some experts say that by the year 2050, less than 40 years from now, there will already be superhumans living on Earth. Less radical forecasts speak about the next century, or 2 centuries, or 3 centuries. But from the perspective of 70,000 years of Sapiens history, what are a few centuries? We are very, very close to the end of Homo sapiens, to the end of history, and to the beginning of something completely different. Whether it will take a few centuries or a few decades, what's becoming very clear is that we sapiens had better start thinking about these matters. The most important question facing humankind today is, what do we want to become? This question is called the human enhancement question. In what way do we want to enhance humankind? And this question dwarfs all the debates that currently preoccupy politicians and scholars and philosophers and ordinary people. After all these debates today between various nations and ideologies and religions and classes will disappear along with Homo sapiens. If our superhuman successors indeed function on a different level of consciousness, or perhaps will possess something beyond consciousness, which we can't conceive, then these beings, it's very doubtful that they will have any interest in Christianity or Islam, that they will organize themselves in a communist or capitalist way, or even that they will have genders like us, males and females. All this will disappear. Most people prefer simply not to think about this possibility. Even the field of bioethics prefers usually to address another question. Most bioethicists, people who are interested in the ethics of all this biotechnology and so forth, they usually ask themselves not what do we want to become, but what is forbidden to do. Is it acceptable, for example, to make genetic experiments on living human beings? Is it okay to do experiments on aborted fetuses or on stem cells? Is it ethical to clone sheep? Is it ethical to clone chimpanzees? What about humans? Now, all these questions are important. I don't want to say that they are not important, but it is naive to imagine that we might simply hit the brakes and stop scientific projects that are upgrading Homo sapiens into a different kind of being. It's impossible to completely stop such kind of projects because they are inextricably meshed together with the human quest to overcome disease, to overcome death, the Gilgamesh project. Ask scientists who are studying the genome, or ask scientists who try to connect a brain to a computer, or try to connect a mind inside the computer, why they do all this. Why do you want to do this? 9 out of 10 times you will get the same standard answer. We are trying to connect a brain to a computer. We are trying to create a brain inside the computer. We are trying to decipher the secrets of DNA in order to cure diseases. This is the standard answer. And this is the standard answer because nobody can really argue with it. This sounds wonderful to cure diseases. Why not? Even though the implications of breaking the code of the DNA or the implications of creating a mind inside the computer are far, far more dramatic than curing this disease or that disease, this is still the standard justification for all these scientific projects, because this is justification that convinces everybody. Nobody can argue with it. And this is why the Gilgamesh project, the attempt to overcome disease, old age, and death, is the flagship of science. It serves to justify everything that science does. Whenever there is doubt, we just think about that and we say, okay, go on. So this is why we cannot stop the march of science and technology. The only thing we can try to do is to somehow influence the direction they are taking. We have, therefore, to start asking ourselves not only what is forbidden to do, but we need to ask a far more important and difficult question. What do we want to become? And since we might very soon be able to engineer our desires as well, the real question facing humankind today is, what do we want to want? Those who are not frightened, those who are not spooked by these questions, what do we want to want, probably haven't given this question enough thought. With these troubling questions, what do you want to want, we come to the end of this course. Before we say goodbye, I want to stress once more that what we learned during this course, the brief history of humankind, is not the truth. It is just one possible story about the history of humankind. If you asked 10 different historians to give this course, you would most probably get 10 very different stories. So you shouldn't accept everything you heard in this course as the truth. It is better to take it as an invitation to explore history by yourself. My aim in teaching this course was not so much to convince you that this or that particular theory is true, but rather to raise important questions in your mind about the history of humankind, about the past, present, and future of humankind. So I hope that you leave this course with more questions than you have when you entered it, and that you leave this course with a desire, with a wish to study and to learn more about our history. In addition, I hope that you leave this course feeling a bit more uneasy than when you started it. Uneasy about the many questions to which we humans have no clear answer yet. Uneasy about the many problematic events that happened in the past. And uneasy about the direction history may be taking us in the future.